Welcome back to the Art Yoga and Wellness Podcast. In today's video, I'm going to be answering questions that you guys sent in via social media. We're going to go over blood sugar regulation, burnout, motivation around movement, saying no, and I think supplements and a few other things. Head on over to today's video and I'll answer all of your questions. Welcome back to the Art Yoga and Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Kira Whitaker. All right, you guys, we made it to another episode. I know last week it was a little bit rocky, just a little bit. I did not feel good at all. And I kept waiting and waiting to record last week's podcast episode, thinking I'd feel better. And I consistently felt worse. But we made it. We're here. We got through it. Was it the best podcast episode I've ever put out? Absolutely not. But we did it. And today, I think today's episode is episode 60, which is crazy that we're this far along. So I thought it would be fun for episode 60 to do a listener and follower Q&A. I don't know the last time I did one of these, but I do like to do them seasonally, kind of quarterly, just to check in, see where everybody's head's at, see if there's any trend in frequently asked questions or things that people are maybe struggling with. And this week, we got some really, really good questions. So I'm going to try to get through about 5 of them. If not, I can always do a part 2, but my goal is to get through, I think 5 is what I picked out. So we will jump in. So the first question that we have is how to avoid my blood sugar spiking, which makes me feel ravenous. Great question. So as you guys know, because if you've been around for quite some time, anytime I talk about specifics on here or listener questions, I always give my disclaimer that this is not medical advice. Always, always, always see your primary care provider if you have questions or concerns about your health. I'm just going to kind of look at this from a bird's eye view. So the only way that we definitively know if your blood sugar is spiking, and that's why we're feeling so hungry, is if we are measuring your blood sugar probably per fingerprint prick, or if you're wearing a continuous glucose monitor. Those are the ones that you see a lot of times on the back of people's arms. So I'm going to approach this in 2 different ways. I'm going to talk a little bit about just general tips for blood sugar regulation. And then I'm going to approach this just from a hunger standpoint and hunger cues. So if we start to talk, if we're looking at this just for some tips to regulate blood sugar, okay, and those crashes, whether it be a spike or a crash. Exercise is a really, really great tool. Exercise, one, it can help you maintain a healthy weight, which is always going to be in our favor when it comes to prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. And it can also help increase your insulin sensitivity, which is also helpful in blood sugar regulation. One thing that there's a lot of data out. I think Cleveland Clinic did it last maybe November, but walking for 2 to 15 minutes after you eat can help you regulate your blood sugar. And I said 2 to 15 minutes. I've seen both numbers and numbers in between in some of the literature, but here's where my head's at for saying 2 to 15. If you're somebody who is not currently physically active and you want a good place to start, 2 minutes is really doable, and that counts, and that's helpful, and that matters. If you're somebody who's pretty physically active, but maybe you do your workouts during the day and maybe you eat a later dinner and then that's your time where you sit down and watch sports, or you're kind of done for the night and you sit down and read and prop your feet up. There's nothing wrong with that, but maybe bump your dinner back a little bit earlier and then get in that 15-minute walk or 10-minute walk. So the 2 to 15 minutes, there's a lot of wiggle room there. I just want to always be inviting. And if somebody is is approaching this from a season long or short where they haven't been physically active, jumping right into 15 minutes could be strenuous for them. So we want to meet people where they are. So walking for a few minutes, whether it be 2 to 15 minutes after your meal, can really, really help regulate your blood sugar. Another thing that people might not know is the correlation with blood sugar regulation and stress. And the reason for this is because stress can affect your blood sugar levels because when you're stressed, your body's going to secrete hormones. One is called glucagon and then one is cortisol, and those will cause your blood sugar to rise. Therefore, your body has to secrete insulin to even that out. So any tools that you have for stress resilience and stress reduction is going to be a huge asset in helping regulate your blood sugar levels, whether that be breath work, whether that be going outside and just sitting, or maybe it's that walk. Maybe that's a 2-for-1 deal as far as benefits go. But definitely managing your stress can be another way to help avoid some of those spikes and ultimately help with blood sugar regulation. Protein is also another thing that can help, but I'm going to now kind of segue into more of just hunger in general. So now I'm not speaking to blood sugar. Now I'm talking about just hunger. So that question was, how can I regulate blood sugar spikes because it makes me just feel ravenous? Let's just talk about hunger. Let's just talk about staying full longer. Let's talk about when we're really, really hungry and we want food, and how do we decipher whether this is my emotions or a craving or is this true hunger? Protein is something that everybody's hearing about right now. It is on the table. People are talking about protein. So protein is important. Okay. A lot of people are told that they need to try to eat their body weight, like the number, okay, in pounds. So 130 to 135 pounds. My goal should be 130 grams of protein a day. All right, that should be my intake. This is what a lot of people are told. Now, for a lot of people, that can feel like a lot. If you're increasing your protein is so filling. For a lot of people, they're like, I cannot eat that much. I am so dang full. This feels like a lot of food. A great number to go for is just 100 grams then. Like just go for that. And the reason that I say go for that is because you do need a target. You need it to be measurable, because if it's not measurable, it's not trackable. It's really hard to track something you can't measure. And I've talked about this from a health coaching standpoint of kind of how I get people to set goals. And if it's not precise and if it's not measurable, then you really don't know what you're eating. You really don't know what you're doing. You really don't know how many times you're doing it. You really don't know the frequency of it, because life happens and we're not paying attention. And so a lot of times when I work with clients, they'll say, well, I get protein. I'm eating protein. And I'll say, okay, how much? I mean, like every meal, which is true. But then when we start to actually track it, they're like, oh, I'm getting 40 grams a day. So tracking your protein is a huge, huge tool and a great way to see what you're actually putting in your body. And then you can fill in those gaps if you need to. So protein is a great way to manage hunger. Another thing, I like fiber. I've said this on podcasts before. I'm a bulk eater. Like I like to feel full. It feels really good in my body to feel somewhat full after a meal. I've never been one of those people that likes really small, frequent meal, tiny meals, because I don't like to feel full. I like to feel full. And so protein and fiber work really, really well for me, and obviously veggies. So protein. And then I like to bookend my protein. I like to do protein in the mornings and make sure I eat a lot of protein at dinner. That way during the day, for me, I do most of my workouts, and obviously I'm teaching my yoga therapy clients. So I move a lot during the day. And so I tend to eat lighter during the day. And then I really like to bulk up my meals on those bookend meals. So my breakfast and my dinner. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but that tends to work for my schedule. And it also really complements my movement schedule. But at the end of the day, as long as you're meeting, your dietary needs and requirements, make it work around your schedule, do what's going to work. The last thing I want to say is on the hunger topic and feeling ravenous and feeling hungry. Hunger cues can come from a lot of different things in the body. It can be because we're thirsty. So something I always like to ask myself, I also ask my children this, and I invite clients to try this out when they're kind of rediscovering what their body needs versus maybe just the feelings and the wants. Are you thirsty? Okay. Have you had water in the last hour? Let's always start there. Make sure you are hydrated. It will never fail you. The next thing is, am I bored? Am I truly hungry? Okay. Am I bored? Am I emotional? And am I lonely? So if I've eaten and I'm just feeling ravenous and I want to munch and I just want to get in the pantry, doing that emotional check-in. And then the last thing is, does protein sound good? If I am truly hungry, like if I'm hungry, a can of tuna sounds great to me. Some sardines, a couple chomp sticks sounds amazing. If I'm more emotional and it's more maybe just hormonal, or maybe I'm lonely, or maybe I'm sad, then that does not sound good. The starches sound good, the sugars and the salts and the savory and the sweet. And so taking a deep breath, getting inside your body, and then asking yourself, am I truly hungry? Does this sound good? And then go from there. Okay. So that was one question and I did it for 10 minutes. So there could be a part 2, guys. I mean, at this rate, there could be a part 2. All right. The next question is veggie supplements for kids. So I have never, ever, ever, ever done any sort of endorsements. You will notice that the podcast is self-funded. I have zero affiliation with any supplement companies. If I say that I'm using something, it's because I'm trying it and I like it. So just know that. For my kids and my family, I really like Juice Plus. We've used Juice Plus for over a decade. So we do the gummies. My kids like them. My husband likes them, and I eat them because I just buy them for all of us. I leave them on the counter. There's 3 different kinds, and that's the vegetable supplement that we do. I have kids that will eat a lot of different foods. I have culinary connoisseurs for children, but that's not to say we don't have gaps to fill in. There are weeks like this past week where we are flying by the seat of our pants and we've eaten out a lot more than we typically would in one week. It's all over the place. And so I love these to fill in dietary gaps. For me, the veggie supplements are not to completely replace their vegetable intake, but they are 100% so helpful for us to bridge the gap. I also really like Juice Plus's protein powder. It's soy-based, and then it has a ton of vegetables in it. I like the chocolate one, and I use that. It's the only protein powder that I use because I just like it. It tastes good, and my family likes it. So I'm a huge fan of Juice Plus. If you guys have other veggie supplements for kids in your family that you really like, definitely let me know because I'm always open to trying new things. That's just something that's worked for us. This was not a question. This was just a bold statement. But I want to do something with this. So somebody put movement, and one of my favorite topics. But I want to talk about movement because I feel like this is something that so many people have. I feel like I run into people who either have it down and they just have like this movement routine that works for them, and they've had it for years, or people that just cannot seem to get in a groove and can't seem to fit it into their lifestyle. And I get that. And that's really, really tricky. I'm a huge fan. If you're somebody who is saying, I really, really need and want to implement more movement into my life, and you're feeling a little bit discouraged and you feel like there's just not the space on your calendar to fit it in, you're not alone. But let's look at what's doable. So let's shrink this down and let's really, really be honest about what's going to work, because trying the thing that is shiny and that we've romanticized and that we've watched somebody else do, it's one of those things like good for her, not for me. Let's look at what's going to be doable. And what's going to be doable for you might be bringing your AirPods and listening to your audiobook or getting caught up on your phone calls while your kid is at practice and walking the parking lot or the ball field. It might be getting a smoothie on your lunch break, making it count, and then taking the last 15 minutes and getting outside and going for a walk. I'm a huge fan of breaking up our movement. I know a lot of people don't have that luxury. I completely understand that. But working out for 30 minutes a day and then being sedentary for the rest of your day, driving in a car, walking 10 feet to your office chair, sitting there for 8 hours a day, getting back in your car, walking inside, sitting down, eating dinner, then moving to the couch to watch a show, then moving to your bed. That 30 minutes is not wasted. So hear my words, a little bit goes a long way. But I'm a huge fan of adding in movement in small doses throughout the day. Just everywhere that you can find a slot, get it in, okay? And that tends to be more doable because most people can find 7 minutes mid-morning. Most people can find 10 minutes on their lunch break. Most people can find another 11 minutes after dinner. So where can we find these little pockets where there's a possibility of movement? If you've got a meeting, if you have a meeting with a colleague and you work in a flexible enough environment, if it's in person, say, hey, do you want to go for a walk around the building while we go over this? So just seeing where there's the possibility to add it in and be gentle with yourself and maybe do away with that picture of it has to be this hour and a half a day at an Equinox gym and you've got to have the outfit packed in the bag and ready to go, or you've got to, go after work and then you don't get home to your kids till 7, or you've got to, lose 2 hours of sleep that you don't really need to be sacrificing so you can go at 5 a.m. Like that just doesn't work for a lot of people. There's a lot of people it does, but if you need to just start small and get in a habit of doing it, just do like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. I think that's a great way to invite movement into your life. All right. The next thing. I love this one. And I might rant a little bit. This one could be my most ranty conversation for probably in a while, actually, you guys. So this question is staying motivated, also not getting overwhelmed during the end of the school year season. I feel like we got to have a real honest conversation about our schedules with these kids, you guys. We've had a lot of conversations in our household recently just about our schedule. A lot of times, personally, we find ourselves kind of choking down water and drowning, but not really realizing we're drowning until we're already in the deep end. And that's just life. But we started to get there with our schedule with our kids, because one kid's got this going on, one kid's got this going on, and we're dividing and conquering, which means our family is divided. And then we have our social lives, which I'm very particular about our social life because my social calendar personally is not ever going to override the time that I spend with my kids. It's just not. That's how we do things. I'm not putting that on anybody else. So we've had conversations though about by saying yes to this, what are we saying no to? And you've heard me say that on the podcast about other things. And so I think we just have to be really, really honest with ourselves of one, does this honor my values? So if my values are, let's say my values are, my obviously family, but if we kind of look deeper, I really value time on the farm with my kids. I really value being outside and caring for my animals. I really value time at the dinner table together and being in community with my family around a meal. Are the things that we're saying yes to in direct conflict with that? And if the answer is yes, then there's always going to be this unsettled feeling in my gut, in my spirit about it, because it's in direct conflict with the things that I honor the most and that I value. And so when we're feeling overwhelmed and when we're feeling like I just can't do it all, it's probably because we can't. the reason that we probably feel really overwhelmed this time of year with our kids is because it's not doable to do all these things, but we're trying to. And so I guess where I'm at is this is where you take up a leadership role and you just declare peace for your family. And you say, we just can't do that. And if it comes down to us saying, but my kid really wants to, my kid also wants ice cream every day after school. We're not doing it because they're kids and they don't know what's best for them short term or long term. They just don't. And so it's the same way with sports or the 5th birthday party that's going on that weekend or what, let us count the ways. We have to be really honest about how many hours are in the day. What is our capacity to do things and do it well? And then what do we say no to? And this is where sometimes you got to take a leadership role and go, I'm going to lead my family. And I'm also going to show other moms and other people in my community that I have a boundary. And my boundary is we do this many things. We do this many things and we say no to this because we just can't do it. And I promise you, somebody else is going to watch you and that's going to encourage them and give them the permission to also say no. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to be the leader. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're burnt out, honor that. And the thing is your kids probably are too. They can only go so much. I love the sports that my kids do. Our sports team is so amazing for both of them. It's so great, but we can't handle any more than we're doing. What we're doing right now feels balanced. It's busy, but it's balanced. There's nothing else we could tack on. It would be madness. It would be true madness. And by saying yes to something else on our schedule for our family, what I would be saying no to is family dinners, never being at home at the same time and us eating as a family, never allowing for them to exist in their home and rest there. They would be checking in and out of my house like it's a hotel, dumping their stuff off and leaving again. I would also honestly be sacrificing their sleep, which I do not play around with in our house. They're growing. My kids need sleep. They're going to get it. And so if I booked out our schedule any more than it is now, I would have to say no to a lot of things that are really important to us and also maybe would be in conflict with our values and my values in our home. So I think we just have to wave the white flag if you're feeling really, really overwhelmed and you're also feeling like unmotivated. It's because you're tired and it's because you're burnout because we've probably just done too much and that's okay. Again, a lot of times we don't realize that we've done too much or we're too busy until we're in it, until we are in it, up to our neck. And then we go, oh gosh, we're here, but it's okay. We all say yes to too many things. It's recognizing it and not forcing that to be our new normal, I think is the key. And shout out to all the moms because you're all doing the Lord's work. Truly, moms are the real heroes and MVPs out there. All right, let me see if we have anything else. I think that's all the kind of meaty ones that I had that I wanted to go over today. I did have one about sourdough bread, and I want to say this. I don't make sourdough bread, but I'm about to start. I'm going to learn. I'm about to jump on this train. I think I could go ahead and get all the supplies and do it one time and be like, this is not for me, but we'll report back on sourdough bread. So I'm not going to address those today. I think there was one that was like thoughts on it. I think it's great. I don't have any gluten allergies or any intolerances to any wheats, and it's good for your gut. And I love seeing people in their kitchen. I love seeing people cook. I love seeing people enjoy preparing nourishment for their bodies. I also love seeing people not afraid of carbs. So I do think the sourdough movement is a great bandwagon to jump on. I'll let y'all know if I jump on it too. All right. So I think that's all the time we have for today, guys. Let me know your thoughts. If there's anything I left out or if there's anything we need to go over, I'm always happy to take requests and discuss things outside of the podcast. You can find me on social media and I'll see you guys in next week's episode. Bye.